the Rhythm Heaven franchise, even though there's only 3 games in the series so far, one of them being Japan exclusive, it's already become one of my favorite franchises. The humorous scenarios, the art style, the music. Oh, and the rhythm-based minigames are pretty great too, I guess. There's nothing like the feeling of getting a perfect in every minigame. Let's not forget the famous Wubba Dubba Dub, is that true? The third game in the series, Rhythm Heaven Fever, or as it's called in Europe, Beat the Beat Rhythm Paradise, or as it's called in Japan, Minna no Rhythm Tengoku, has a few interesting version differences. And when there's differences in a game, you can bet your Wiimote I'll be here to talk about them. Let's start with something really basic. Because the European PAL version took a lot longer to release than the North American NTSC version, they added the option for us to switch between the English and Japanese audio. In the North American version, you could only play with the English audio. Now for the feature presentation. The Japanese version had an endless minigame that didn't make its way into any other version of the game. The minigame titled Manzai Birds is based on the traditional Japanese comedic duo act Manzai, where the bokeh says or does stupid things, and the tsukomi points out what dumb thing the bokeh is doing with over-the-top reactions. In this case, a big slap to the gut. You play as the crow. Press A twice to say, hi, hi, which means yes, yes. When the vulture sticks its head out like an idiot, you press A and B together to say, Donna nen, which pretty much means, don't be stupid. Now, it's pretty obvious why this game didn't make it outside Japan. Not only would it require a bit of translation, but it's also based on Japanese wordplay, which wouldn't translate well. Also, there's a bit of a culture clash going on here. But don't feel too bad for missing out, as every other version got the endless minigame Mr. Upbeat instead. Which was just ripped from Rhythm Tengoku on the Game Boy Advance. Speaking of Rhythm Tengoku, that's a game that's definitely worth importing if you're a fan of the franchise, as even though the text is all Japanese, you can still play the game fine. There's actually some references to Rhythm Tengoku in the DS Rhythm Heaven, also known as Rhythm Paradise in Europe, and Rhythm Heaven Fever. In freeze frame on the DS, later in the game a bunch of characters appear in the background blocking your view. The first time I played this, I thought these were just a bunch of random guys, but every single one of them is from the first game. These 3 monkeys here are from the Clappy Trio. These 2 dudes here are from Rap Men. These 4 blockheads are from Space Dance. And these 3 other monkeys are from Tap Trial. Both the Clappy Trio and Tap Trial made it into the extra games in Rhythm Heaven Fever. The extra games are just games from the original Game Boy Advance game. In the Rhythm Heaven Fever minigame, Cheerleaders, when the books open up, there's characters from the previous 2 games. This head, which is the commander guy from the Marcher game, and Onion's face from the weird game Vegeta Pull. 2 different forms of the tapping girl from Tap Trial. Gee, that game sure gets around. And this white stick guy, who we'll get to in a second. The credits minigame, Night Walk, is one of my favourite games, if not just for the music. This isn't the game's first appearance though. It's actually based on the game of the same name from Rhythm Tengoku. Instead of Marshall, who's actually called Matt in the PAL versions, you play as that white stick guy from earlier, who is known as Play Yan. So why is the stick dude known as Play Yan? Well, it turns out that Rhythm Tengoku actually wasn't his first appearance. He made his debut in a Game Boy Advance game called Play Yan, which wasn't exactly a game. You put an SD card in the cartridge, and you could watch MP4 files or listen to MP3s on your Game Boy Advance. Who needs an iPod when you've got this? Play Yan appeared on the menus of, well, Play Yan. Of course, Play Yan, the game that is, was never released outside of Asia, but that doesn't mean you can't see Play Yan, the character that is, for yourself. If you put an MP3 file onto your 3DS's SD card, when you listen to it in the Nintendo 3DS sound, one of the visualizations is the white stick himself. Now that is an awesome reference. And that's everything I've got to say about the Rhythm Heaven franchise. Not too many things to talk about, but I thought it was worth making a video about it still. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Hey, thanks for watching this video. I haven't really done anything else on the Rhythm Heaven franchise apart from this one dumb video me and Brandon did, but that's not even worth linking. So here's just two different version differences. Go watch them if you haven't. I love making version differences. Version differences are great because it's always good to know what someone else on the internet is playing, because it might be slightly different to what you're playing in very minor ways, but it could be interesting minor ways. Anyway, I'll see you next time on the next version differences or whatever the hell I'm doing on this channel.